Clemens, North Carolina, 2009. On a quiet, dead-end street in a cookie-cutter suburb stood a pale gray, single-story house at 2749 Nob Hill Drive. Overgrown weeds clawed at the foundation. The front windows were blacked out, and from inside came the faint, sour smell of rot like wet dog hair and stale meat. Neighbors said they avoided it. Kids dared each other to approach it. No one knocked twice, because they knew who lived there, or thought they did. He called himself Pazuzu Algarad. His legal name had once been John Alexander Lawson. But at some point, no one could say exactly when he abandoned his human name and declared himself a vessel for the demon Pazuzu, the Assyrian god of famine, pestilence, and storms. He filed his teeth into points, tattooed sigils and inverted crosses across his face, and stopped bathing entirely, claiming it would weaken his connection to the entities that guided him. And somehow he gathered followers. In Clemens, Pazuzu's home became something between a drug den, a ritual ground, and a black hole. Friends or victims would drift in and out, high on meth, drunk on cheap whiskey, ranting about black magic and the end of days. Some never left. One neighbor remembered it clearly. The walls were yellow. Not from paint, from smoke, blood, filth. There were pentagrams drawn in feces. But Pazuzu didn't hide. He appeared in Vice documentaries. He gave interviews, grinning with sharp teeth, saying things like, "Evil is just a part of me. It's who I am. It's my religion." He told journalists he sacrificed animals, that his gods demanded pain and ash, and that the human body was just meat. They thought he was putting on a show, until the ground behind his house was opened. 2009 to 2014, 5 years of warnings. Over the years, local police received numerous tips that Pazuzu was hosting satanic rituals involving animal blood, that his followers were being abused or controlled, that he had killed a man and buried him in his backyard. Each time, the reports were filed and forgotten. The house, though clearly a threat, was left untouched. Why? Some believed it was fear. Others believed it was bureaucratic blindness. But one officer later admitted, "We didn't think he was capable. We thought he was just insane, not dangerous." They were wrong. Inside the house of Pazuzu, those who entered described a scene out of a nightmare. Garbage piled knee-high. Crucifixes nailed upside down. The smell of urine, vomit, and rotting meat. A freezer with no food, just animal parts and bone fragments. Bottles filled with dark liquid Pazuzu claimed were offerings. And in the center of the living room, a makeshift altar made of cinder blocks, bones, melted candles, and what appeared to be human teeth. His girlfriend, Amber Birch, lived in the house too. Together, they claimed to be priest and priestess of chaos. And according to testimonies from later arrests, they held ceremonies that involved testing followers with knives and fire. One girl claimed she was forced to cut herself, while Pazuzu whispered in her ear, "Pain is truth. Let your blood speak for you." The first clue that couldn't be ignored. In late 2014, a woman came forward. She claimed Pazuzu had boasted to her about a murder a man named Joseph Chandler, he said, had insulted him. So Pazuzu and Amber shot him in the head in the house, then buried him in the backyard. She told police he even showed her where the body was. This time, they listened. The backyard is opened. In October 2014, after nearly 5 years of complaints, police executed a search warrant and excavated the backyard of 2749 Nob Hill Drive. What they found horrified even seasoned investigators. 2 skeletal remains wrapped in plastic. Signs of shallow graves dug and refilled multiple times. Animal bones mixed with human ones intentionally arranged. Both bodies were eventually identified. 1. Joshua Frederick Wetzler, missing since 2009. 2. Tommy Dean Welch, last seen in 2009. Both were shot and buried. Their disappearances had been filed. Their cases closed due to lack of evidence. And all along, they were just behind Pazuzu's broken fence, beneath dead leaves and animal bones. Why didn't anyone stop him sooner? When the public asked, officials gave dry statements. But the truth seeped out. Reports were ignored. Officers claimed they weren't sure if the stories were credible. Some even admitted being afraid to enter the house. And Pazuzu had chosen his victims carefully, the marginalized, the addicted, the lost. People no one noticed. One reporter put it best. He didn't just believe he was a demon. He knew no one would come for the people he hurt. When arrested, he laughed. Pazuzu and Amber were taken into custody. He snarled at cameras. She showed no emotion. In a final courtroom appearance, Pazuzu was asked why he did it. He only said, "Because I'm supposed to." Then he smiled, teeth still sharp. 2002 to 2009. The transformation. Before he became Pazuzu, he was John Alexander Lawson, a troubled teen growing up in Clemens, North Carolina. His school records showed average grades, some disciplinary issues, and periods of isolation and rage. But what no one could have predicted was the path of decay he'd choose to walk. At some point in his late teens, John legally changed his name to Pazuzu Algarad after the Assyrian demon of drought and famine famously featured in The Exorcist. He told people the demon had entered him. He stopped bathing. He filed his teeth into points with a Dremel tool. He began holding rituals in his home that included animal sacrifice, self-mutilation, and blood drinking. And people followed him, not because he had charisma, but because he had no limits. The house on Nob Hill Drive. Neighbors started noticing the house and avoiding it. One visitor said, "It was like stepping into rot. There were bones in every room. Animal blood on the walls. Candles melted into the carpet. No lights, just flickering red. The house was filled with satanic symbols, inverted crosses, dead birds left to decompose in bowls, human feces smeared across the bathroom tiles like paint. And yet, the front door was always open. And people came. Constantly. His followers, the chosen few. Pazuzu had devotees not in robes but in meth-fueled obedience. Most were young, addicted, and looking for something to belong to. He gave them that, but it came with a cost. "You had to bleed for him," said one girl. "He wanted your pain." Said it fed the thing inside him. They called him Lord Paz. He called them his family. Two women stood out. Amber Birch, his live-in girlfriend, often seen carrying a shotgun and a machete. Crystal Matlock, another partner who helped with the ritual cleanups. The house became a machine for rot. The parties never stopped. The rituals got darker. And eventually, Pazuzu began bragging about murder. 2009, the first disappearance. Joshua Wetzler, a 32-year-old man with schizophrenia and a kind heart, vanished. He was reported missing by his partner. The police said he probably wandered off, but inside Pazuzu's home he had already been. Shot in the head, wrapped in a tarp, buried in the backyard with chicken bones scattered around his corpse. Pazuzu told people about it often. He laughed. He called it a gift to the old gods. But no one called the police, because they were afraid. Why people stayed silent? Multiple visitors said they believed they'd be killed if they reported him. He'd once forced a man to drink blood from a dog's wound as punishment. Another girl claimed he kept a child's tooth in a jar on his altar. And always in the background. Amber cleaning the knives. Crystal digging holes. The rituals were getting closer to death. Pazuzu's sessions, some caught in grainy cell phone clips, included forced drug use, nude chanting around a fire pit made from a washer drum, bloodletting ceremonies where followers would cut themselves for him, and the man in the center of it all barely moved. He sat cross-legged, bones in his lap, mumbling to someone none of them could see. Then another man vanished. Tommy Dean Welch, a drifter, was last seen in 2009. He'd visited Pazuzu's house. Then he disappeared. Pazuzu told a girl in confidence. Tommy wouldn't shut up, so I silenced him. She said nothing. She was 19. She thought he might kill her too. Later, Tommy's remains would be found buried beside Joshua's. And still, the system did nothing. Reports were filed. Tips were called in. But Pazuzu was smart in his own way. He targeted addicts, outcasts, and people no one missed. He told just enough truth to scare, but not enough to convict. One woman tried to escape. A follower named Shelby fled the house and later gave an interview. She said, "That place changes you. You stop thinking you're real. You're just part of what he's building. You smell like him. You dream in blood. And when you leave, you're never fully clean." 2011 to 2014, Pazuzu's rule ends. Over time, the family fractured. Meth supplies dried up. Followers fled. And finally, someone talked. A woman who had seen the bodies buried. She gave police enough detail that they had to act. October 5, 2014, the dig begins. After years of stalling, authorities raided the house. Inside, they found rotting carcasses of dead animals, blood-smeared walls, and 2 human graves in the backyard. The property was declared a biohazard. Even seasoned officers vomited. One detective said, "It wasn't just murder. It was worship." Amber Birch and Crystal Matlock were arrested. Amber confessed to helping kill Joshua, shooting him in the head. Crystal admitted to helping bury bodies. Both said the same thing when asked why. "Pazuzu told us to." "But Pazuzu?" He smiled. He said nothing. Until the end. October 2014. Pazuzu Algarad arrested. The local news called him the Devil of Clemens. His mugshot went viral, face tattooed, dead-eyed, smirking like he knew something no one else did. And he probably did, because Pazuzu had spent the last 5 years turning 2749 Nob Hill Drive into a living shrine to decay. Not just to death, but to ritualized, sacred rot. And now, the secrets inside those walls were about to be exposed. Inside the house, what police found. After the arrest, cleanup teams and hazmat crews entered the home. The official report listed animal bones in every room, including partial remains of birds, rodents, and a decapitated possum in the fridge. Drawings made in feces and blood. A toilet filled with solid matter and never flushed. A bathtub stained dark brown, possibly used for ritual washings. Sigils etched into the drywall with knives, some matching Sumerian demon seals. One investigator who'd worked 20 years in homicide said, "This wasn't filth. This was construction. He was building a place for something. Or to become something." Neighbors who had ignored the house for years now lined the street. "We always knew something was wrong," one woman said. "But I never thought they were burying people." The final whisper. During questioning, Pazuzu refused to speak. For hours. Days. Then, according to a guard's statement, he finally leaned forward and said, "They're still in the walls. And they're hungry again." The guard laughed at the time. Until he saw the walls. The hidden room. A back closet, sealed with duct tape and blankets, was found behind a false panel. Inside was an altar made from animal vertebrae glued together, a stained mattress, dried candle wax in 13 melted skull shapes, and a single human incisor stuck into a bar of soap like a shrine. Amber Birch later said this was where Pazuzu talked to them. He said they only came when the air got thick. You had to make it thick with pain. The suicide that wasn't supposed to happen. In October 2015, a year after his arrest, Pazuzu Algarad was found dead in his jail cell at Central Prison in Raleigh. Cause of death, blood loss from a deep neck wound. Officially ruled a suicide despite the fact that he was on suicide watch. He had access to no sharp objects. The wound was described as precise and clean, not torn or jagged. Some believed he had help. Others believed he simply knew what he was doing. His death was never investigated further. His last words, allegedly. A fellow inmate claimed Pazuzu said something just days before he died. "When I go, they'll open their mouths again. They've been quiet too long." No one knows what it meant. Or maybe no one wanted to find out. The house becomes a specter. In the weeks following Pazuzu's death, people began visiting 2749 Nob Hill Drive. Teenagers took photos on the porch. Paranormal vloggers tried to film rituals. Locals swore they heard chanting at night, though the house was empty. One woman who lived next door said, "I'd wake up at 3 a.m. to the smell of burnt feathers. It was always strongest on the side of the house where they buried the bodies." Then the city took action. Unable to clean the house, the smell never left. The city declared it a public health hazard. It was bulldozed in April 2015. But before the demolition, a final inspection was made. Crews discovered something written under the wallpaper, scrawled in black grease pencil. "The kingdom is not outside. It's waiting to be remembered." The phrase was written over and over. Sometimes mirrored. Sometimes backward. In one spot written with a fingerprint. No one claimed responsibility. The earth beneath. Even after the house was destroyed, construction crews reported strange phenomena. Tools went missing. Gloves melted. One man refused to return after hearing a low growl from under the foundation. Eventually, the land was declared unsuitable for residential development. It remains vacant. Nothing grows there. Where are the followers now? Amber Birch pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and is serving 30 to 40 years in prison. Crystal Matlock took a plea for helping bury bodies. She'll be eligible for parole in the 2030s. Other former disciples scattered. Some are addicts. Some vanished. A few have spoken on forums saying they still dream of the house. One wrote anonymously, "When he died, I thought the dreams would stop. But they didn't. Sometimes I still see the altar. Sometimes I hear his teeth clicking, like he's smiling. Like he's still waiting." Before the name Pazuzu, before the murders, there was a boy named John. John Alexander Lawson was born on August 12, 1978. From the outside, his childhood in Clemens, North Carolina, looked normal. His mother, Cynthia Lawson, described him as a sensitive, creative, misunderstood child. But by the time John was a teenager, something had started to twist beneath the surface. Signs of fracture, He began refusing to eat with his family. He mutilated insects and kept their bodies in jars. He claimed to hear a voice that told him secrets about blood and time. When he turned 18, he started experimenting with drugs and dark imagery. But the most important shift came when he discovered something in a library book. Pazuzu, an Assyrian demon known as a bringer of pestilence and storms. He underlined one line: "He comes when air and flesh are made impure." The name change. In 2002, John legally became Pazuzu Algarad. He told friends he had died and been reborn as a vessel. At first, it seemed like performance art. Edgy, gothic, attention-seeking. But those close to him began to fear that he believed it. He stopped bathing. He began fasting and feasting in cycles. He believed blood, human or animal, had to be spilled to feed the gods. His mother's role. Cynthia supported him publicly. She told reporters, "My son was troubled, yes, but he wasn't evil. The world made him that way." But privately, she allowed his transformation. She helped him pay for the name change, as she bought supplies he used for rituals. As she claimed she never saw bodies, but admitted the smell was unbearable. One visitor to the home claimed Cynthia once said, "The demon has to eat, I suppose." Was she being sarcastic? Or was she also under the influence? The house before Pazuzu. Here's where the story gets darker. Public property records show the house at 2749 Nob Hill Drive had 2 prior owners before Cynthia Lawson. One of them, William L. Finch, 1950 to 1981, reportedly disappeared after returning from military service in Iraq. His case was closed with no body found. The other owner, Mildred Ames, had the house for only 6 months in 1983 before moving out suddenly. In a local paper's Lost Archives, she gave one quote: "There's something in the walls. The dreams don't stop. They want to be remembered." She died in 2004. No family ever reclaimed the house until Cynthia moved in with her son. Pazuzu's journal. When investigators cleaned the house, they found a composition notebook, partially burned, wedged behind a vent. Inside were scrawled symbols, diagrams, and a disturbing mantra repeated over 30 times. "The house knew me before I knew myself." Also found a sketch of a horned figure emerging from under floorboards. Notes labeled Spine Choir, Meat Mouth, and Rememberer, a poem that read, "We rot together, we unpeel the light, we feed backwards, we walk again." Others who claimed to feel it. After the home was bulldozed in 2015, several cleanup crew members began reporting similar experiences. Nightmares of choking on ash, the smell of burning feathers, a sudden nosebleeds when standing near the former altar site. One worker, who asked not to be named, said, "That place didn't want to die, it just wanted to change skin." An old story resurfaces. A local historian unearthed a chilling detail. A report from 1893 describes a missing persons case on the same land where the Nob Hill neighborhood now stands. It mentioned a ritual pit and the discovery of animal bones arranged in spirals. The sheriff at the time declared the area unsettled ground and advised no further development. Over time, the report was buried. The development continued. Then came Pazuzu. So was he born evil or chosen? The real horror may be this. What if he wasn't possessed in the Hollywood sense, but rather shaped, cultivated by a place, a rot that waited for a vessel? For years? What if the demon never needed to enter him? What if the house or the land beneath it built him from the inside out? After the house was torn down in 2015, most believed the case of Pazuzu Algarad was finally over. 2 men dead, 3 people convicted, 1 house destroyed. But the rot doesn't die when you kill the body. Sometimes it survives in fragments. And one of those fragments came in the form of a VHS tape, discovered behind a panel in Pazuzu's bedroom closet, 2 months after demolition. The tape that shouldn't exist. A former cleanup contractor, speaking anonymously, said, "It was inside a sealed Tupperware box with 3 dead rats. The label just read, 'Do not play alone.' The tape was handed off to local law enforcement. It was never shown publicly, but a copy of the incident report leaked through a whistleblower gave this chilling summary. Contents of the tape, per report, begins with 2 minutes of static and no audio. Cuts to Pazuzu sitting naked in a circle of candles, muttering in a non-English language, possibly Enochian or Sumerian. Behind him, a figure appears, hooded, unmoving, face never shown. Pazuzu cuts his palm and feeds blood to a bowl of raw meat. Then he speaks directly into the camera. I am no longer speaking alone. I speak with the memory that feeds. At the 14-minute mark, the film appears to warp and the camera begins shaking on its own. A shadow moves across the ceiling with no source. Final frames show the floor bubbling like it's breathing, then the tape cuts to black. The video was placed into evidence vault storage, sealed. But days after, the officer who logged it reported waking up with a nosebleed and burn marks on his chest. His body cam, inactive for months, had been turned on during the night and recorded 19 minutes of ceiling footage in his bedroom. Former followers speak. As attention turned to the followers of Pazuzu, several of them started speaking out, often in cryptic or broken ways. One, who went by Rex, said, "He didn't summon anything. He fed it. It was always there. He just made it fat." Another broke down in an on-camera interview and whispered, "You don't understand, it was under the house. It's still under something." That same person later recanted their story. They were found hospitalized 2 months later after a suicide attempt. They had carved a spiral into their chest. Not deep but precise. The spiral returns. Investigators re-examining crime scene photos noticed something odd. In 2 separate photos taken on different days, there was a chalk spiral drawn under the living room rug. No one could explain how it had been missed. It was not listed in original evidence logs. Forensic analysts determined the spiral was made from bone dust mixed with soot. And worse, the bone fragments weren't animal. They were human. The artifact that wouldn't burn. A final item was recovered from a condemned trash heap near the house site. A charred wooden box, locked and sealed with melted wax. Inside, a cracked animal skull, teeth not belonging to any known species, and a black mirror shattered. When the box was burned during disposal, the flames reportedly changed color from orange to deep green. The air turned acidic, forcing responders to retreat. The fire burned for 18 hours through rain. Nothing else in the burn pile ignited. A week later, a local paranormal investigator who had taken photographs of the box was found dead from asphyxiation in a locked car. There were no signs of struggle, but his camera was missing. And the dashboard had fingernail scratches that weren't his. The dream symptoms. 3 people involved in the original case, 1 journalist, 1 cop, 1 contractor, began reporting identical dreams. A door with no handle. The smell of wet copper. A voice whispering, "Remember me before the mouth closes." Each described the dream before knowing the others had had it too. None had spoken in years. Is it over? The house is gone. The cult is gone. Pazuzu is dead. But the question remains. What if the house was never the source? What if it was just the first place something felt seen? 6 months after the demolition of 2749 Nob Hill Drive, a records officer reviewing archived case files uncovered something strange. A 911 recording. Timestamped March 3, 2010, 3:34 a.m. It had never been logged, never transcribed, and was not entered into the Pazuzu case file. It had been placed in a sealed envelope labeled, "Do not copy, audio review required." The recording per transcript. Dispatch. 911, what's your emergency? 3 seconds of silence. Caller, muffled, whispering. It's feeding. It's awake now. Dispatch. Sir? Can you speak up? Caller. It's inside the walls. I thought it would stop. He made it louder. Dispatch. Sir, where are you calling from? Caller. I see its mouth. It's not his voice. He just carried it. 7 seconds of static. Then screaming. Then a second voice. Unidentified voice, distorted. Not the body. The memory. The skin remembers. Call ends. When the audio was reviewed by forensics, it was confirmed. The call came from a disconnected landline inside Pazuzu's house. 6 months after both victims had already been buried in the backyard. There was no record of the line being active at that time. The evidence fire. Not long after the rediscovery of the 911 call, a fire broke out at the evidence storage facility holding the physical remnants of the case. The fire was contained to one row of shelves, section G13. This section included the black mirror recovered from the ritual box, a burned journal with spiral markings, and the VHS tape from Part 5. Everything in that section was destroyed, except for one item: the survivor. Amid the ash, a steel box was found, sealed with melted wax, identical to the first. Inside, a piece of skin folded in linen. A small rusted spoon engraved with what experts called untranslatable glyphs. And a photo of Pazuzu, not previously seen, with his eyes blacked out and his mouth crudely scratched out with a pin. The photo had no burn damage. No one could explain how the box survived the fire. Cynthia Lawson speaks again. In a rare interview recorded just months before her death in 2021, Pazuzu's mother, Cynthia, finally responded to the rumors. She denied everything. There was no demon. There were no rituals. My son had problems, but he wasn't evil. But when asked about the burned markings found on her hands during Pazuzu's trial, which looked eerily like the spiral, she went silent. Then said, "He didn't draw those. He used to say the house liked me too much, that it wanted to talk through me." A hidden room reopens. In early 2022, the lot where the house once stood was surveyed for possible development. Construction halted when workers discovered a crawl space that hadn't been listed on any city blueprints. Inside was a broken chain, scraps of bone, and a final drawing on the stone wall. A figure with no eyes, no mouth, and spirals carved into its chest. Below it, scratched in English, "It's not over if the ground still remembers. Former followers begin dying." 2 individuals formerly associated with Pazuzu's group died under mysterious circumstances within 6 months of each other. One overdosed in a locked bathroom with spiral carvings found on the mirror glass, done from the inside. 2, another drowned in a lake. His lungs were filled with soot, not water. His last text to a friend? "I heard him again. In the static. The air smells like ash." Theories emerge: possession or pattern. Paranormal analysts and independent researchers now suggest the case was never about possession, but about invitation. What if the rituals, the decay, the blood weren't meant to bring something in, but to give something already there the ability to move again? A pattern repeating. Suffering. Silence. Then echo. 2022. A retired detective from the original Pazuzu case, name withheld, came forward in a podcast interview. He'd worked the backyard dig, helped process the altar room, and had spent years denying anything supernatural about the case. But off record, he finally admitted something. There was a notebook. We were told to destroy it. The burned notebook. According to him, the notebook contained page after page of spirals drawn with bone, dust, and saliva. Descriptions of a voice behind the wall. A repeated phrase. "Before his name was mine, I wore others." It also contained sketches of figures Pazuzu had never seen, specifically a symbol found in pre-Assyrian tombs in the Middle East. A god with no mouth, ringed by ash. The detective burned the notebook, but he still dreams of it. "I dream of holding it. I dream that it breathes." The earliest spiral. A former schoolmate of John Lawson, Pazuzu's birth name, submitted a 1988 yearbook to an independent researcher. On one page, barely visible under a doodle of a skull, is a faint spiral. The same shape found years later burned into his walls. The same spiral found behind the mirror. The same one etched into ritual chalk, stitched into flesh, drawn in ash. This was before Pazuzu ever changed his name. Before he knew the symbol. Or thought he didn't. The psychic who saw him first. In 2007, a local medium named Renee S. claimed she had recurring dreams of a house full of teeth where something below hummed in spirals. She documented it in a blog post dated June 2007, 2 years before Pazuzu's first known ritual. The entry reads, "It's not a haunting. It's a remembering. Like the dirt itself is trying to wake up through someone else's skin." She later said she saw Pazuzu's mugshot in 2015 and immediately fainted. Amber Birch's letter. From prison, Pazuzu's former girlfriend and accomplice, Amber, wrote a letter to a journalist. It was confiscated but partially transcribed by an anonymous source. The letter includes a sketch of the Nob Hill altar room but with no doors. A note. He said it lived inside the silence between sounds. And one final chilling sentence. He said I was just skin, that the spiral was always inside me waiting. The spiral in unrelated cases? A Canadian homicide detective noticed something odd while researching occult crime patterns. In a 1993 Montreal cult death, a spiral was found carved into the underside of a bunk bed. In a 1999 Arizona desert compound raid, authorities found a mirrored spiral drawn in animal blood. In a 2012 abandoned asylum in West Virginia, graffiti artists discovered a spiral burned into the floorboards, with no sign of fire. Each spiral was seven-armed, jagged, and almost identical to the one found in Pazuzu's home. The cases were unrelated. The spiral was not. Theory. The spiral isn't symbolic. It's instructional. Occult researcher Marcus Varelli proposed this. The spiral may not be a symbol. It may be a map, a form of psychic geometry, a binding formula. Every person who draws it is reenacting a forgotten instruction, like a virus copying itself. He claims it's not that people see the spiral and go mad. It's that people who are already chosen can't help but draw it. Who's drawing it now? 2 months ago, a TikTok user went viral after posting a video of a spiral scratched into their apartment mirror. One they swear they didn't make. In the background, audio distortion causes a chilling voice to emerge when played in reverse. He still needs mouths. The video was taken down. The user deleted their account, but copies spread, and more users claimed they were seeing it too. Why this still matters? Because Pazuzu is dead. The house is gone. But people, strangers online, are now saying the same phrase. The spiral doesn't come from outside. It waits behind your eyes. November 2023. An independent investigative team reviewing sealed court files from Forsyth County uncovered a set of confidential therapy notes written between 1995 and 1999. They belonged to Drive E. Halverson, a licensed mental health counselor assigned to a teenage John Lawson, before he became Pazuzu. The notes had been sealed due to unethical interpretation of symbolism, but now they may be the key to understanding everything. Session notes. The dark eye in the dirt. Age 16, John reported feeling heavy while lying on the grass behind his house. When I close my eyes, I see a wheel. It spins but never moves. It eats light. He drew it. A seven-armed spiral, crude but clear. Dr. Halverson noted it as likely a visual fixation or obsessive symbol, but wrote, "He becomes catatonic while staring at the image. When I tried to remove the drawing, he hissed." John claimed, "It lives under me. It says my name backwards." Back to the spiral. As online communities picked up on the Pazuzu case again, people began noticing similar spirals appearing in strange places, a scratched into bathroom stalls, a burned into the edge of a tree stump in Oregon, drawn in ash on a highway sign in Colorado. Each time, no one saw who made them. Surveillance, if available, glitched, and reports of bad smells, nausea, and ringing ears followed shortly after. The pattern map. Reddit user u/Quiet Collapse created a disturbing visual, a US map overlay showing 23 crime scenes over 30 years, all involving unexplained bodily damage, animal bones found near the body, a spiral-shaped burns or carvings. When mapped, the points form a spiraling constellation centered around North Carolina. The center? Clemens, the forgotten voice message. In a 2023 FOIA data dump from the Pazuzu investigation, a voicemail was discovered never previously released, left on a retired officer's machine at 3:33 a.m., undated. "You took the skin." The voice stayed behind. "It's drawing now. Mouths remember faster than minds." The number was disconnected. The voice was digitally distorted, and according to experts, it included frequencies outside normal human speech range. The child who drew it. In September 2023, a 9-year-old girl in upstate New York was caught drawing a near-perfect replica of the spiral on her school desk, again and again. When asked where she saw it, she said, "The mouth behind the wall told me. It's how it walks through us." She had no known exposure to Pazuzu, cults, or ritual content. No one could explain the drawings. The deeper theory emerges. An occult researcher named Shauna Volume 50 published a disturbing thesis. The spiral is not a symbol. It's an architecture, a form of bioresonant transmission. It appears when a mind becomes porous enough for memory not its own. She calls it the spiral virus, and claims it may be pre-language, pre-myth, and transmitted through obsession. And then a new murder, October 2023, Asheville, North Carolina. A body is found in an abandoned barn, curled in fetal position, eyes missing, and 7 candle stubs placed in a spiral formation around the corpse. The barn's walls, etched with Pazuzu-style glyphs. But DNA from under the victim's nails was traced to no known individual. Local PD issued a statement, ongoing investigation. But online sleuths already have a name. It's him. He's back. Or someone is drawing the spiral again. January 2024. A sealed envelope is delivered anonymously to an independent journalist. Inside, a prison-issue composition notebook, a bundle of photocopied surveillance stills, and a single sticky note. They buried the memory, not the mouth. The notebook belonged to Pazuzu Algarad, dated August to October 2015, the final months before his suicide in custody. The prison never admitted such a journal existed. The Pazuzu Prison Journal. It's written mostly in fragments. Spirals, scratched phrases, gibberish alternating with chilling lucidity. Some entries. It walked through me but left pieces behind. I see the open part of the world. It hums in the teeth. She's already here. She's just not skin yet. But one passage stands out. A near-page-length note dated 2 days before his death. They think the walls are solid, but the spiral makes rooms inside your head. It is not a god. It is a shape with memory. The more you remember it, the more it becomes you. My death is the last seal. The mouth will open next in someone soft. It doesn't want worship. It wants to be repeated. Surveillance still number 7. Among the leaked materials is a photo taken from a corner camera in Pazuzu's cell. Timestamp 3:34 a.m. the night he died. He is visible, hunched over, mouth open, eyes wide. But behind him, reflected in the mirror, a figure. Too tall, faceless. And the wall behind it? Spiraling outward. A survivor speaks. A former associate of Pazuzu, unidentified, now living under witness protection, contacted a podcast host after the prison journal surfaced. Their message: you think he died, but the voice didn't. He used to say we were just recorders, not people, just ways to echo the pattern. When asked why they came forward now, they said, because I've started dreaming of the house again. But it's not the same house. It's mine. The church beneath the church. A cryptic Reddit post leads investigators to an abandoned Methodist church in rural Georgia. Beneath the pulpit, a trapdoor opens into a basement not listed on any records. Inside, dusty candles, mummified birds, and a stone wall engraved with the 7-armed spiral identical to the one from Pazuzu's altar. Above it, in faded red, memory lives in shape, voice lives in heat. Walk again. It's unclear who built the space or when, but newspaper archives reveal the church was shut down in 1972 after a series of parishioners were hospitalized for psychotic breaks linked to scripture. Online spiral activity surges. After the leak of Pazuzu's journal, dozens report seeing spirals appear in frost, steam, or static. Several social media users post art they don't remember drawing, all with spiral motifs. A viral audio clip surfaces on TikTok that, when reversed, spells, not Pazuzu, not demon, just shape, just return. The audio is removed. The user deletes their account. They are later found in their apartment, alive but catatonic, having carved a spiral into the floor. What if it never needed him? Researchers now ask, what if Pazuzu wasn't chosen because he was evil, but because he was permeable? What if the spiral, whatever it is, simply needed a body willing to rot? And now that it's learned to write itself in us, it no longer needs hosts, just memory, repetition. Witnesses. Spring 2024. A family moves into a newly built home in western North Carolina, only 30 miles from where Pazuzu Algarad lived and died. 3 weeks in, their 7-year-old son, with no prior behavioral issues, begins drawing spirals. On fogged bathroom mirrors. On paper towel rolls. On the inside of his closet door. Each one, 7-armed, black, ragged at the edges. His parents think it's a phase, until they find one drawn in his own blood under his bed. The tape that shouldn't exist. A paranormal researcher in Arizona receives a package with no return address. Inside, a mini DV tape labeled, "He Still Draws." No case file links it to Pazuzu. But when played, the footage shows a flickering black and white view of a bathroom mirror, a spiral slowly appearing as if burned in from the other side, and in the final frame, a face. It's Pazuzu, but his mouth is sewn shut. A whisper is heard even as the image freezes. You watched. You heard. You fed. The mirror that wouldn't reflect. In a rural Tennessee thrift shop, a woman buys a mirror once labeled antique, unpriced. She puts it in her hallway. Within days, the glass fogs without heat. Her dog refuses to go near it. And at exactly 3:33 a.m. it no longer shows her reflection. Instead, it shows a man sitting cross-legged, smiling. His teeth are filed. His eyes are holes. Behind him, a spiral wall breathing slowly in and out. She throws it away. It shows up in her yard the next morning. The final spiral. In a restricted server at a university anthropology department, an old chalk rubbing is digitized. It's a floor carving from a collapsed temple site in Iraq dated 2800 BC. The carving is a 7-armed spiral. Etched around it, translated hieroglyphs. The thing that learns through skin. It speaks only when remembered. It grows by being drawn. The last recording. A shortwave radio enthusiast in Kentucky records a distorted transmission on a dead channel. The audio verified by multiple listeners contains static, infrasound hum, then a voice. You made a mouth for me by listening. Then Pazuzu's laugh verified by a match to his Vice interview. And then silence. The station has no broadcast license, no tower location, no signal source. It was never heard again. What the spiral really was. Occult researcher Marcus Varelli publishes his final theory. The spiral is not a symbol. It's an emergent pattern. The moment it's seen, it begins replicating itself in the mind. Not through belief, but through shape. Through rhythm. Through exposure. Pazuzu was not the host. He was the first repeater. Where we end. The house is gone. The people are dead. But the drawings keep appearing. And when they do, dogs growl at corners. Phones ring with no caller. Mirrors breathe. And some people report hearing a hum, low and wet like teeth grinding in water. And once you hear it, you start to draw.